snowboarding was the catalyst, but it introduced me to everyone I know now, and the injury introduced me to everyone else I know now, and that you can't trade that shit for anything, man. That's the only thing that's going to matter at the end. It's not going to be that I jumped over a highway or sent that cliff. It'll be those relationships.
You are listening to the Bomb Hole.
Bomb Hole Podcast.
It's going to be very hot. It's going to be very uncomfortable for everybody.
The Bomb Hole.
That bitch is crazy.
Okay, here we are again at the Bomb Hole. It's me, Chris Grenier. We got my co-host, Stony Buds. E-Stone, how we doing?
I'm doing great, man. This is probably my favorite part of the week, getting in here with the boys.
Chop it up. Well,
Chop it up.
It's a real honor, the guest we got today.
Big honor.
We got Tim Ostler in the booth. How we doing, Tim?
Tim's doing good. Thanks for asking. Happy to be here. It really is an honor to be considered and kind of remembered. So let's jump into it.
Appreciate that. That's all. It's all our honor. But you grew up here in Utah, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I was born in Cottonwood Heights. There's that Smith's right there on Bengal. I kind of grew up just west of there. Born and raised, born in the house that I grew up in. My parents still own the house, and real close to Brighton and all the canyons. So
pretty big family, from what I heard, right?
Pretty big, yeah. I got 6 siblings. I got 4 older brothers, an older sister, and a younger sister. And my parents were a bit older. I never really had grandparents. They had passed on prior to me kind of being born. There was a couple that were still alive, but they were located in places where I never really saw them. So I have these older brothers that are they're in their 60s.
Oh, damn.
And I've got a little sister that's 39 at this point. So, yeah, my parents had 4 kids, waited 12 years, had 3 more. I had fallen that 3 more bunch, and the rules were just a little different for
looser.
me and the young. Yeah,
a little bit looser.
My parents were burned out, man. And I was just just hit the ground running.
As long as give him some food, he'll be all right.
That was it.
Survive.
Feed him, he'll be able to make his way. And you grew up Mormon too, right?
I did for the first. Yeah, when you're born into it, you kind of that's part of it.
You don't have a choice.
Yeah, I didn't really have a choice. I didn't know what a choice was for the most part. About age 13, I started kind of thinking for myself, and I was like, I'm not into this. It's just, I've been smoking for a year at that point. I'd car hop at church and steal coins out of the ashtrays.
Oh, really?
And then I'd cruise down the Sev and play Street Fighter, eat nachos. This was during church hours, and I'd come back and show up to the car to go home. And they thought I was at church.
Oh, no, you were
pro tip.
Out.
Yeah, it's a pro tip.
Good pro tip.
Hit a Street Fighter instead.
Yeah, so, I cut out early. Age 15, I really started thinking for myself. Dropping acid, smoking weed.
Damn.
And I was officially out.
Yeah, when you're on that level.
I'm out of here.
You're not on par with the church.
Yeah.
No, it just wasn't aligning with my life anyway, but I just wasn't into it, man. It was just boring as shit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, understandably. Well, speaking with your good friend Tonino Copine, he was kind of shouts to Tonino.
yeah, much respect.
Straight up. But he was saying that you guys you were just left to your own devices as far as a lot of freedom as a kid to do whatever the hell you wanted to, and during that time,
definitely
being the youngest,
definitely. And Cottonwood Heights at that time was a lot different than it is now. They didn't have police force. There was open fields everywhere. A lot of the homes now. You just could ride your BMX bike over, hang out, do whatever. My older brothers used to ride dirt bikes right out of the backyard.
Damn.
You could ride all the way out to Draper, bounce back on trails that were they were the killer. I mean, big hills over through Willow Creek area.
Now it's all houses.
And now it's filled. It's stacked. Yeah. So it was cool, though. We got away with a lot of shit.
What got you into snowboarding?
Skateboarding. So I rode a skateboard. I wasn't very good. And 8th grade, so 1989, I came into my morning class. It was an English class, and this kid, Bob Edwards, who had an 8-foot ramp in his backyard. He was a great skater. He showed up. He had a cast on his arm, and he told me he broke his arm snowboarding, nightboarding at Brighton. And I was like, what? What's this? And he told me about it, and he was super hyped on it. So I thought I had to try this, and I went up to the what's the place at the mouth of the canyon? It used to be underneath the Porcupine. Lift House. Lift House. And they had rentals, and I rented this Burton Cruise 163 with the hard plastic bindings that were one piece with backpack straps or whatever. Board. Yeah, and my mom helped me get the ticket. I think the ticket was $19 at the time. We went up. She dropped me off. I was just wearing denim with some basic thermals underneath it, and some shitty jack. I don't even know what it was. I was alone, didn't know what I was doing, but figured it out and enjoyed it, even though I was in pain the whole time. I was like, I love this shit. And man, it was so much easier than a skateboard.
True,
and I was into it for sure. Way true, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Speaking,
everybody knows that,
of course, yeah. And speaking of Tonino, he was kind of saying that you came from pretty humble beginnings. Like a lot of your gear was hand me down and like kind of ghetto in the early days, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I mean, as far as I knew, that's all anybody had, right? There was
Yeah.
a couple kids I knew that had some new stuff. Their parents would get them stuff for Christmas. But for the most part, it was just like you got what you could get your hands on, and it was gold. You were just like, fuck, I got a new pair of bindings, and they might have been garbage, but they were new to you, you know. They were like a new product, you know. So
yeah, those early days of Brighton, talking to when I was talking to Tony, he was saying there was like 15 cars in the parking lot on a weekday, and it was just like sounded incredible back then, huh?
Yeah, it was a different time for sure. I was actually texting with him this morning about that, and man, it was different. You could go out to the Mary shoots 3-4 days after a storm, and there'd be like 4 lines cut by a skier. Most of the time, it was that Craig guy that does like backcountry, Craig Gordon.
Yeah,
it would be his line, you know. And I remember all those guys. They'd see us and they'd be bitching at us for traversing across the fall line to get to a jump or to a cliff or whatever. But it was what he described as pretty accurate. You could be riding the lift up, look back at the parking lot, and it would be 2-3 rows of cars, you know, and,
crazy.
and
They
no
stayed
one
in
around.
business.
Yeah. I mean,
now
yeah.
it's filled up. If you don't go up by 10 o'clock, you're not getting a parking spot.
it's wild.
Yeah.
The
And that shit's tracked out in Marys by 10, 11 o'clock.
Yeah. It caught up with everywhere else.
Yeah. So who was your crew back in the day when you were shredding, early shred days?
So when I first started riding, I had hooked up with a couple local. By local, I mean my neighborhood and my school. A guy named Mike Clunker, a guy named Ryan Donaldson, who we called Chet, and a kid named Jeff Jarrett. And they skated. And so we kind of became a little crew. And then we added a couple along the way, a kid named Trent Wade and Richard Cadlick. And then from there, we started meeting more guys. And we started looking around at the hill, and you'd see Tonino, and he'd be riding with this guy, J.J. England, Casey Buxton, Brandon Ruff. And they were kind of like a year or two older than us, and they were a little bit better. And so we always had great people to look up to.
Yeah.
You know, and those guys were, I mean, just another level in my eyes. And so, yeah, we'd cruise around with our little crew. We'd snap photos with our 35 mil photo shits that our parents would let us use, and VCR, like the 2-piece with the backpack or like the bag. Like a guy, his dad would let us take that, and we'd get all this footage, and it was just ridiculous. But we made these little videos, and yeah, we had a good time. So it was just a couple local dudes to kick it off, and then it grew into those other crews.
What made you decide you wanted to become a sponsored rider and do something with it?
As soon as I saw Critical Condition.
Nice. I remember that one, dude.
As soon as I saw that and realized like these guys were like rock stars in my eyes, and people were getting paid to snowboard, and obviously in the magazines you were seeing, you know, competition stuff, and it's like obviously these guys have sponsors and stuff. I started thinking that's what I want to do. I didn't know what it entailed. I had no clue. But I was dead set that that's what I wanted to do. And as much as I love to ride, that's all I did anyway. So it just kind of like took a natural cycle to that point. And all of a sudden I was riding for gear and money. So
that movie kind of glamorized it too. They did a good job making it seem like, well, this is the shit.
They killed it for sure.
That was insane.
Yeah, I dug that movie a lot.
It was really cool. Got a chance to speak with Jeremy Jones earlier this morning, and yeah, shouts to Jones, obviously. But it was awesome listening to him. He was like almost like choking up talking about your riding, dude. It was special. He was like, I have written down quote for quote. He said, "I consider him to be one of the best riders to ever live." And then went on to talk about like you basically being a powerhouse, like sending all the cliffs at Brighton. And like just like basically just known for your style and going bigger than everybody else. It was really cool to listen. Is that kind of what you were into, just sending cliffs and back in the day?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we always tried to emulate what we saw in the videos and the magazines. You know, Hard, the Hungry, and the Homeless. All of a sudden we were jibbing, no clue what we were doing. You know, but there was one year like Blue Montgomery and a couple guys, Joe Stalzer and this guy Troy Baskerville. They all came out from Iowa, I think. And all of a sudden we spotted these dudes in the middle of the bowl jumping off everything. And they'd never been to Brighton. And we'd been looking at that stuff every day for like the last 2 years and never jumped off it. And all of a sudden my mindset changed. And I just started, me and Mike Clunker we'd find a cliff. We'd set up 50 feet back from it, and we would just point it. And it didn't matter like if it was big or small or what the landing was. The snow was this deep, and it didn't matter how you landed, man. Like I'm telling you,
launch it.
Yeah, like 92, 93,
sick.
94 had so much snow. You could send it off anything. So we got our balls out and we started jumping off everything. And then as I got better at like edge control and carving, bindings got better. Everything, came up to snuff. It was I just liked riding as fast as I possibly could upright and looking at different jumps and trying to just hit them as fast as I could. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that era seemed incredible as far as like not as calculated as it is now. It's just kind of like go fast and send, and all those iconic photos of all like the fisheye underneath cliff shots are so sick. I love that era of riding and stuff.
Yeah, it's cool to see photos from then because there's always like a trail of powder just following someone like 60 feet out off of whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just ridiculous, some of the stuff that was going down. But it is now too, so.
Yeah.
You were shooting with Whitey back in the day too, huh? That must have been pretty sick.
Yeah, that was cool. I didn't know how sick it was until I look back at it now, and I'm just like, damn, dude, that was really like a cool time in my life and everybody's that was doing it then. But yeah, we had a lot of fun, man.
When that Rev commercial dropped, man, that was next level. That was the Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah, that thing was
awesome.
fun. We had a lot of fun with that. I got a call one day. They had said they'd purchased the cars. They'd already painted them up. They're like, we need you in this. And I was like, all right. Showed up, and I was like, holy shit, you guys have it dialed. Like
that car was so sick.
It was so fun.
Yeah,
and
Whitey didn't mess around, huh?
No, he had a vision, man, and he knew how to execute it. And so, yeah, we went out, we poached these fields in these neighborhoods. They're all homes now. Like one's over in Sandy and the other one's just also in Sandy. But yeah, we just ripped it, and we jumped the car, we peeled out, we had a blast. No cops messed with us. And when it was over, both those cars were leaking oil and in this field out in Sandy, and these two, I don't know, they were probably like 17-year-olds came approaching us and like, you guys doing anything with these cars? I'm like, nah, you want them? And they were like, yeah, here you go, man. Figure it out.
Way.
And we just bounced. We didn't have to deal with any of it.
Yeah,
they just took
dealing with it would have sucked. Huh?
Yeah, would have sucked. And that's my memory of it. It could be a little off, but essentially, like we just
bounced.
Yeah.
They came up
Here's
on
the keys,
some whips,
guys.
huh?
Yeah, well, they saw us jumping, and so they wanted to know what was going on, right? And then they asked us what we were doing with them. We were like, nothing.
Yeah.
You want them? Yeah,
Take 'em.
So, yeah, it was cool.
Out of curiosity, how did you get on Rev at that time?
Jeremy Jones. Yeah.
Okay, sick.
Yeah.
That was like the hot boys back in the day.
Yeah,
for
that
people
was
that don't know.
The cool
Yeah.
kids were riding for Rev when that launched.
It was a cool time, and the product was insane. I'd been on a local company, Winter Stick. A guy that owned Milo Sport named Dwayne Bush had restarted the Winter Stick brand, purchased rights from Dimitri, I guess, and for about a year I shot with them, had a couple of boards, got a couple ads shot for them and some catalog stuff, and then one day we were hiking a jump. Jeremy was with some of the, I think, Canadian guys, or I don't even remember, but it was that kind of quarter pipe back off Pioneer. Don't know the name of it. Forget it at this point. But anyway, he's like, dude, come ride for Rev. And I was looking at the sliders, and I was just kind of like weirded out by it. I didn't trust it at first. And after a few days, I kind of thought about it. And I was like, yeah, I'll do this. So I said yes. That quick, I had boards, and it was a different program, and it was like the best move I made in my career by far. Like,
yeah, just the hype around the team was pretty sick.
Yeah, and to actually have a team, because at the time I was kind of the only rider. There was a couple other guys getting some flow, but there wasn't that team component, and the travel wasn't there. And this was like things were put together. They had plans for ads, and so yeah, we
you were
just
part of
rolled
a
with
real
it.
program.
Yep,
Cool.
totally.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, Jeremy was describing it as like maybe the best time in his life. Like you guys hopping in a van, driving up to Canada, stashing some weed at the mile marker border, going across the border, like just being kids and stuff like that, right?
Man, we made our own choices. Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah. There was a couple times I took some things across the border that was a little sketchy. There were times that we plugged stuff into the ground and just left it. It was all safety stuff, nothing too gnarly.
Nothing too gnarly.
But yeah, we always kind of caught a little bit of flack at the border. There was one time we were coming back from a trip we had done. We went to Revelstoke, shot with Mark Gallup, and got our whole catalog done at this Powder Cat's place. And on the way back in, just south of Calgary at that entrance, Jeremy had a bunch of herbs in this little like tray thingy that he was carrying, and we were at the customs, and they were asking us about it, and I made a joke like, holy marijuana, Batman. And in like 3 minutes they had everything off the top of the car. They were pulling everything out off a stupid joke. I was totally kidding, thinking I was being silly, but I just I didn't understand the situation. So
And
anyway.
did you guys get through or what?
Yeah, we didn't have anything on
you
us.
didn't?
Like we were good to go. But
Yeah.
it was literally a joke.
They don't
I mean,
like those jokes.
No, they didn't like the jokes. And I was like 19. I didn't give a shit. I was
And
just
they
like,
probably marked you for life.
oh yeah,
after that,
every
too.
single time that I've traveled to Canada, minus like a year ago,
Yeah.
I've always been stopped.
You're on the
every
list.
single time.
This
yeah.
guy joked
Yeah.
about weed one time.
Yeah, totally.
And
They
then you're
definitely got a
done.
heavy list going.
Heavy
for sure.
list going through the
And then,
snowboard
dude, that
community.
list does not like snowboarders.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, snowboarder, let's rip the car
Dude,
apart.
Mark Frank used to get taken in that room every time. Like
Cavity search.
He'd always just be like, "It's because I'm Mexican." He'd like throw that at him, and I'd just put him further on the list.
Right. Yeah.
He would just show his passport and just be like, "Which way's the room I got to go to?" See you guys in an hour.
Yep. Yep.
Every time. And then so from Rev, you eventually got hooked up with Lib and or Quicksilver.
K2.
K2.
Actually, yeah, there was a 1-year stint with K2. So Rev went down in kind of 96, 97 timeframe. They ran out of money, I think was the situation. And so we got a call that said, we're done. We were all pretty bummed. So I did about a 1 full season and part of another season with 0 sponsors. And I was up at the Mount Baker Bank Slalom, and Josh Rosen, if you guys know Josh Rosen or anybody does, he's a Northwest rider, and
Yep.
I think he was on K2 at the time. But he said, "Hey, you gotta meet the team manager. Come meet this guy." And he made the connection for me. And within a couple of months, I was signed up and on their team. And so I did like a year and a half with them. It was about a year. Yeah.
About a year.
Yep.
So after K2, then you were LibTech in Quicksilver? Is
Yeah.
that correct?
So yeah, I blew my knee out in February of '98.
Is that from launching those big dog cliffs or what?
Oh, yeah.
Jumping over the highway.
Right
by Donut Falls. I was
Oh,
jumping
dude,
the Big
I
Cottonwood
remember.
Road.
That was like a Whitey shoot, right?
Yeah.
Legendary.
I
so
remember this, yeah.
the year prior when I was on Rev, Jeremy, JP, and a couple other people, we sent it, and it was perfect conditions, and we all got shots, like on my mom's camera. And a year later, filming with Whitey, I was like, we got to hit that shit. You know, it had been snowing.
Yeah.
So we show up, and in-run was different. There was some of that snow from the scraper trucks that had salt in it, and scrubbed my speed on the way up.
Came
and
up
I came
short,
up like
right?
half a foot short, man. Like
I
8
was
inches
there,
short.
dude. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I felt it pop, and it hurt like a son of a bitch. And I drove home, and then like a week later, 2 weeks later, surgery. And
That was a weird gap, too, because it was like it wasn't like you're going like a step down. It was like
yeah,
it went up.
It
and
was
then
a true table.
Yeah,
I mean,
true
like,
table.
The landing was at the same height as the takeoff, and the year prior it had just the right amount of woo.
Yeah.
But the second year it was real sloped out and tangy, and,
And you caught like a foot of the pavement, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it just barely came up short.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, it's just coming back to me now. I totally
yeah.
forgot about that.
Yeah, and so when my contract was up, I was laid up, and I had some shit all on my knee, and my team manager called. He's like, "Hey, we're releasing you," and I was like, "All right, whatever." You
Yeah,
know, I was
shit
bummed for
happens.
sure. I was bummed, but I went up to Hood that summer, linked up with the LibTech guys, and yeah, picked up that sponsorship. That was
But back in the day, just so the like listeners know, like a knee injury isn't like it is now, right? It's more like back then you didn't really like it was a bigger ordeal to bounce back from a knee injury, kind of.
I guess it is. I don't
Yeah.
have a point of reference. It seems like athletes now, when they get a knee surgery, it seems like almost like part of the deal. It's like, yeah, it's going to happen, and you get
Yeah.
fixed, and you're out.
And also, it also seems like your expiration date was younger at that age. Like, oh, you're like 21, you're old. Right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that was kind of, because also just like kind of the way the picture was painted for me was kind of like, it was a looser time, almost like when 80s, like, or when vert switched to street, it was a weird transition. And I saw you guys, like, you're jumping cliffs. I saw awesome video, you racing border cross, like riding half pipe. You're doing it all, right? Like,
You talked to Tonino, man. I just sent him that shit. I was like, look what I found. Like,
dude, that was so sick. You mopped up Josh Dirksen in border cross race.
Is that a true story?
Respect. Yeah, I have the video on my phone.
oh shit, man. Yeah.
That's a big
That's
deal,
funny.
dude, mopping up Dirksen.
Yeah,
I
Dirksen's
didn't mop
fast.
him up, man, but
Hey,
I
listen,
definitely-
you beat anybody, you mopped him up.
All
That's
right.
how I.
All right, I'll take it. All right,
Take it.
that's rad. Yeah, I mopped him up. Sorry, Josh, but I mopped you up.
He's probably hyped, dude. He'll be stoked to hear that.
It was his home mountain too, so
So what was that? What was that era like as a boarder?
I thought it was awesome, man. It was like a free for all.
times.
The pressures weren't there. No one was cutting and making their own edits. It was just a simpler time for sure. I felt like all I had to really focus on was riding. I never thought about the business side of it, which is probably why I never really made any money at it. But I just loved to ride, and I was tripping that I was getting trips around the world and
Yeah,
getting
you were going to Japan
free
and
product
stuff, right? You were
Never
doing
made
it.
it to
Oh,
Japan,
you
but
didn't?
like New Zealand, I got
New
to go to
Zealand?
Europe twice, Canada a ton with Rev, and the Northwest a ton. Just all my sponsors seemed to come out of the Northwest. I was like, so I was always up in that zone. And
In my opinion, when you're linked up with Whitey too, pretty much have a good thing going. So that's
Yeah.
that's all you got to do is
It was
be in
real
his
good.
movies, right?
Yeah, it was real good, man.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you know, he'd just say, "Hey, we're going to Jackson," and it was like, cool. Just bring my gear and climb in the car, and he handled all the bullshit.
Yeah.
Rooms were rented. He had ideas of where to go. We'd strap in, we'd jump, and hopefully get the shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
That's
cool, man.
dope.
Yeah, he handled it. He was fun too. He's a wild man.
Yeah, he was a pretty wild man.
So much energy. I never met anybody with energy like that at that
Yeah,
point. I
right.
was like, Jesus, man, what is going on with this guy?
He would yell sometimes when when his sugar levels were off.
Yeah.
What the fuck? I didn't eat a bagel today. He would like freak out. Like he would do that.
That's
shit.
how white he was?
Yeah, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, is this kid like maybe not quite cool enough to shoot with him? But sometimes he'd shoot with me, and sometimes he'd pull that shit with his blood sugar off, and I'd just be like, what the fuck, man? What is going on? I didn't know how to react.
I didn't know it was a blood sugar thing. I thought he was just a maniac.
I thought he was a maniac.
Yeah.
You didn't know where you stood, but he was the man. So it'd be like, all right.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. And then also, while you were riding, you spent a lot of time at Hood as well, correct?
Yeah. So when I'd gotten sponsored in '94, and I was still in high school. So when I graduated at summer '94, the sponsor Dwayne Bush, who I had mentioned earlier, he sent me and another guy, this guy Mike Forsgren, to Mount Hood. He gave us his Chevron gas card, a couple of boards, and he said, "Go up and do what you guys do." So we took off. We went to Hood. We spent 3 weeks in Hood, and then headed up to Canada from there. And that was it. We had a gas card. That's how we ate. Neither of us had money. And so like we'd reach points in the trip where like we'd go in and make a purchase and they'd be like, it's not working. And we'd have to call this dude and be like, hey man, the card's not working. And he'd be like, I forgot to make the payment. And so he'd like make a quick payment. But there was a couple times where we went like a day and a half where we just didn't have food.
Crazy.
But Hood at the time, everyone was, I mean, it always has been, everybody was real accommodating. We had places to stay and people fed us and we were good. But
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was the on? Insane. What was the on-hill scene like up at Hood at that time? Like hand dug half pipes and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, everything was hand dug, not nearly as crowded as it is now. So I had only seen it in videos, and I thought we could just show up and be hitting all these jumps and the pipe and everything was good to go. But it wasn't like that. And I can't remember the guy's Frank something. He ran Mount Hood, or no, it was maybe High Cascade Snowboard Camp when it was way down in Rhododendron. Out of like a little gas station, they ran everything. It was like this tiny little spot, and we showed up. I think we dug that afternoon or helped rake or do something. We ended up taking that guy a case of Weinard's beer and some weed that night, and we had the pass. After that, we were good to go. They're like, yeah, you guys can hike. So we sat and we hiked as much as we wanted. We were responsible for getting up the chairs, but when you looked around and the placement of the camps, everything was much smaller. They didn't build half the stuff they built today. But it was insane. I mean, it was just like a heyday. Like, you see 30 guys lined up for like a highway hit and a half pipe, and everyone was just sending it, and there'd be one photographer sitting there, and everyone was just trying to make it. It's no different than any other day at Hood, I guess. But
Except
it was
the
sick.
amounts of people multiplied by 10 or whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
The old hand dug half pipe photos and videos are so iconic. I love watching those like little 10-foot pipes. People just boosting, Turrier doing
Those
McTwists
pipes
and
were the
stuff.
best, man.
Yeah, it was crazy to watch guys boosting out of stuff that they shouldn't have been boosting out of. Like that was just, you look back and like, wow.
How did they get that
So,
much air
yep.
going? Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty
Those
cool.
were good times.
Yeah, for sure.
So leading up with your career, you're riding for Lib now, and you're riding for Quicksilver.
Quicksilver, yep.
Let's talk about the day.
Oh, that was a sip. Caught me at the
sip.
right time.
Got you at the right time.
Yeah. So it was December 29th, and I just returned from a trip to Europe. We had linked up with the Quicksilver Europe team, done some photo stuff over there. So I had this great last trip. Came back to Salt Lake. Todd Schlosser and Javis Len were staying with me at a house that my girlfriend at the time, Kellie, was babysitting this house or watching it, babysitting, whatever. So we had a couple days riding around Utah. Stan Evans called and he's like, hey, we need to get some photos for some ads for Quicksilver. Let's go up to the pipe at Park City. Nighttime, I was like, yeah, let's go. It'll be fun. Tonino Copan and his girlfriend at the time, Liz, who's now his wife, they were there as well. So the four of us rode up. Stan laced up the tickets. It was my first time riding Park City. They were new to letting snowboards on the hill, and we went up and rode the pipe at night, and we were just, straight airs messing around, and it was kind of the end of the evening, about 8:30, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna head down after this one. I told Tonino. I dropped in from the left side, so my heel side, and crossed over to the front side. First hit, and I took a little too much speed, and the pipe wasn't perfect, so it kind of caught the tail end of my snowboard on the toe side edge. It popped me out away from the wall, and it sort of hunched me overhead first. And so I hit the bottom of the transition with my feet, and then I was bent at the hips, so my head, and they hit kind of simultaneous. And I saw it coming, so I put my arms up and to brace the impact. And when I hit the ground, I felt and heard the pop, and I was just laying there, and I couldn't move or feel anything. And it felt like it felt like my hips, like if I was trying to like feel myself in space, it felt like my hips were rotated up and my face was down, like I was completely twisted.
The wrong way.
Is how it felt. It was really, I just couldn't feel anything. It was I don't know, it was kind of weird. And I'm laying there, and I could see the heel side of the pipe, and there was a kid walking up the deck, and it was just eerie with the lights and everything, and I couldn't move or see, and I kind of questioned for like a half second. I'm like, am I dead? Because I'm like, get to Nino. I'd lost my diaphragm. I said, get to Nino, because I knew he had all this experience on hill at Mount Hood. And this kid was just looking at me, and he kept walking, and he wasn't hearing me. And I was like, am I fucking dead? Like, what's going on? And he finally realized something was up. And then Tonino ripped down, and a couple people, and Tonino, everyone was like, get him out, And Tonino was like, don't move him. Don't move him. Like, keep him right there. And so I laid there. Patrol came down. They got me prepped. They called the helicopter. They took me down to the bottom of the pipe and then out to kind of a flat area for the chopper to land. And they chucked me in the chopper. I remember the guy in the helicopter saying something about giving some steroids. They shot something in my neck, and then it was kind of hit and miss for the next 7 days in the hospital of memory. So
really, you were kind of in and out.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, they kept me pretty tuned up on something that I was just
you were just on drugs.
Yeah, because of the time of the year, I don't think a lot of neurosurgeons were available.
Yeah.
It's New Year's, people like to party. I don't know if that was the true situation. They told me it was because my spine was swollen, and they wanted to let it heal up a little bit.
Yeah,
but I was like, damn, there's some champagne to be drank. So
fuck.
This was 2000?
Yeah, this was 2000.
Almost 2001.
Yeah, Tonino had a couple crazy little points there. He was saying that he watched you get pitched into the flat, and he was like, his initial reaction is like, oh, he's gonna be pissed about that bail, like, but didn't think it was as serious as it was, right? And then the other point he brought up that was insane was that, like, he said that maybe half hour after you got airlifted out, there was a crazy inversion that came in that the helicopter wouldn't have been able to land.
Yeah.
And it was like almost some kind of higher spiritual shit that happened.
Yeah. So everybody knows about that inversion that comes every year. Mm-hmm. I literally caught the last flight into the U of U. Like, they landed, picked me up, flew in, and that shit moved right in. And that was it. And they didn't fly for like 2 or 3 weeks after that. There was no flights.
So you would have not been able to get there at all. Or they would have had to driven you, I guess.
Yeah, it would have taken a long time. And who knows what the result would have been.
Wow.
Might have been a different situation had that been how it unfolded. But yeah, I caught the actual last flight in. It was pretty crazy. Yeah. Yeah. So super lucky, super blessed, however you want to put it. It's trippy to look back on and think about that. It's like, yeah, that's crazy. He remembered that too. That's rad.
That's definitely cool.
Yeah.
When this happened right then and there, did you have any thoughts of like, oh shit, I can't move, what's going to happen? Or were you just like, get me to the hospital?
Nah, right away I was like, I'm never snowboarding again. I knew right out of the gate.
Out of the gate.
I had this feeling. Fuck. I had this feeling, and I just knew, and I was pretty at peace with it right then. I was like, if that's what it's got to be, that's what it's got to be. Maybe something will be different in a couple weeks. I don't know. But right now I feel like I'm done. Like, I was like, that was it.
That.
Yep.
That's insane.
Right away.
Jeremy, when he was like choking up, telling me this stuff, but he was saying that when people would come to visit you in the hospital, like, they'd be freaking out. Like, Jeremy himself would be freaking out, and you were calming him down. And he said, like, he's like, dude, his shit, like, he's like, fuck everything. It doesn't matter what you do on your snowboard. Like, it's like people, and you care about people. And he was like, kind of, Jeremy, like, I wish he was here, part of this conversation, but he was like, basically tearing up, talking about how you carried yourself during those times in the hospital and stuff.
Yeah, it was strange, man. I don't know what happened. Like, when I blew my knee out, I'd mentioned that earlier, for 6 months, I was a miserable prick. Kellie almost was just like, she was over it, man. And when this happened, she actually thought I was going to be much worse. But I don't know what happened, man. But when I woke up, like, on day 7 in the hospital, I just looked around. There was, like, flowers and stuff. Like, Transworld had sent stuff. Snowboarder had sent stuff. The Cummins had sent me stuff. I mean, there was all this stuff, like, wishing me well. And it was a positive vibe right out of the gate. Every single day was positive. I mean, I had struggles and there were tough times for sure, but we laughed so much, dude. I've got photos where it was just like any other day. It was even more so. Like, I was maybe like a little uptight before that. Not uptight anymore. I'm laughing about stupid stuff, and it was kind of exciting in a way, which is kind of twisted. But it was like I was getting like this whole new, I was starting over.
Yeah.
And everything was new and fresh. And I was just like learning how to try and use fingers that don't work and a thumb that doesn't work. And there was all these new challenges that that was all I had time for. And so I focused on what I could. All the faces coming through obviously made me smile. And so that's probably what he's referring to. I was just always like, hell yeah, I was stoked. And they were probably seeing me going, oh shit, he's fucked. But I was just like stoked to see friends and support. And so I was having one experience where they were probably having another experience. Of
I remember coming in and we were just freaked out, and you were pretty lighthearted, and it was crazy. It was just like, oh shit.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't know what's wrong with him.
Yeah, we were all nervous to go in there and all that, but then you kind of chilled it out for everybody.
Ah, that's cool, man. That's cool to hear.
Yeah. And this art behind you, this is some stuff doming.
Yeah. So there was one day, Doman and a couple other people. I didn't know some of the kids at the time even, but the Milo crew, they all put this together and drew it up, and this hung in my...
Is it hang in there, Tim?
Hang in there. Yeah. And some crazy trippy artwork, which is really rad. And so this is something I got to look at every single day, and obviously the colors were cool, and but I just thought support, think that people gave a shit, and they took the time to draw this up. But it lifted me a lot. I'd look at this and just laugh and be like, that's crazy shit, man. These kids are cool.
That's pretty rad. You even said like Nico Droz came in from France.
Yeah.
Like people were seeing you from all over the place. Like the snowboard community is pretty dope, huh?
Yeah. Every single day I had people coming through. It got to the point where the hospital was like asking me to kind of like, could you like tone this down? And I was like, I'm not in control here, man. This is y'all's problem. Like, if people are coming, man, I'm seeing them, like whatever. And it was like nonstop, like when I wasn't in therapy, which was like kind of like a 8 to 5 type of thing, or 8 to 3, from 3 to 9 or whatever, was just lined up with people, man. It was like people coming in on top of each other. I'd have like 6 people in the room. It was fucking awesome.
That's awesome,
yeah,
man.
It was super cool. So
yeah, it seems cool. Like in that situation, kind of like a testament to how awesome of a human you are, obviously, is how many people are coming to visit you when you're down, right? Like that's incredible. That's a true testament. And one thing Jeremy said, he was like, the one thing you said when people would freak out, according to him, was, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to get through this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't know what that meant at the time, but it's kind of like, there's really no other option with everything.
Yeah.
You could break your leg tomorrow and you're going to get through it. You wake up, you adapt, and you like move forward and do what you got to do to survive. And this was no different.
Yeah. One day at a time. Huh?
Yeah, for sure. It was a little more extreme than I would want to experience or want anyone to experience, but shit, it happened. Like, focus on what you can and control what you can, and let the chips fall as they may.
Yeah. For a little bit, they told you there's a chance you'd be able to rehab back, right?
Well, yeah. So that could be taken a lot of ways, and what they mean, they say that my injury was incomplete, meaning
I read that, incomplete.
Yeah, meaning my cord wasn't completely severed, which means there's a chance for recovery. What that means is going to vary from person to person, situation to situation, right? So I still have change in feeling and function 20 years later.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I gained a ton in the first 5 years. They typically would, to cover their tracks, they always say, hey, whatever you get back in the first year is probably what you'll have for life. And so in year 1, I felt pretty good. I had some feeling back. I could move a couple fingers barely. I had adapted, and I could do my daily stuff and putting clothes on, getting dressed, eating, stuff like that. But it kept going. And I pushed, I did a lot of therapy in a couple different places, and stuff kept coming back. And I was like, I'll take what I can get, whether it's weird. There's been stuff that a muscle started working that actually made it harder for me to get into a car. But I was like, I don't give a shit. It's working. It can kick and it can push and throw me off, but I'll take it.
I'll take it. Yeah, every little bit is something, huh?
Yep.
That's crazy. Yep. And how was the hospital? Were they pretty good?
Yeah. I was up at the U of U, and they didn't have a choice.
They just dealt with you.
Yeah. They probably had no idea what was coming. I didn't either, but they didn't have a choice, man. Those people that came to visit weren't going to be turned away, and they weren't.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got away with some shit. Like, I'll tell you some stuff off camera that has to do with insurance that I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but yeah, we got to do some cool shit.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
And did your perspective kind of like shift about life like immediately, where you're just like, okay, this is it. This is how I got to do it?
Yeah, I would say for sure. Right away, my entire identity was cut away, and my abilities too. Like, someone might lose their job or lose their sponsors, and then your identity is kind of fucked, right?
Yeah.
On top of that, I lost my physical abilities too. So it was like triple fold or double fold. That's 2 things. And I just kind of like, yeah, I had to look at life a different way, you know, like I went from all this physical activity and being capable of so much, you know, I'm 6'2", I'm 195 pounds, and I could move. I was like fast and whatever. And all of a sudden I'm just like sitting there and I can't even like sit up straight, you know? And so it was like this, it happened quick and it wasn't like a drastic thing, but I definitely looked at life different and just had to focus on getting better first. You know, I had 3 months in that hospital. I got to do what I can while I'm here, and then I'll figure shit out when I get out in the real world. So.
Totally, man. That appreciation for, like, it's crazy, you know, people that are able to walk around, go running, go do all these things, go snowboarding, you take it for granted, but you're worried about the like fucking Instagram comment or some bullshit, right?
Yeah.
But it's like then you see somebody in a situation like yourself and you're like, dude, you got to get your shit together. Jesus, we got it pretty good, you know? And like,
yeah, perspective's everything. And, you know, I'm to a point in my life, and I have been for a while, where I'm back to complaining and worrying about stupid shit that doesn't matter. Sure. Yeah. Like, you know, like, so it's like, cool. I've come full circle, you know, like all this stuff that involves my wheelchair and all that. It's all second nature now. It's, you know, I've adapted well enough that I don't even think about it. And I'm back to that.
That's awesome.
Complaining about a bill that came and like, what the fuck is this? Who do I owe $300 now? You know,
the human body is amazing. How are the mind? I guess.
And the mind, both, really. Yeah, for sure.
You can just switch back to that. It's normal.
And then it's just whatever circumstance you're in, over time becomes normal, huh? Just no matter what it is.
It's just adjusting.
Yep.
Yeah.
When you finally got back to your house, was there a period of time that was pretty fucked?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did so when I left the hospital, I had an older brother that lived out in Draper. He said, hey, I'll retrofit my basement. You can stay there. So we posted up there for a couple months. And the reality of not having all that help around that I had at the hospital.
Yeah, because you had everyone doing everything, right?
Yeah, and they were teaching me stuff, right? But now all of a sudden I'm on my own. I got to figure it out. So we did a couple months there, and then we rented me and Kellie, when I say we rented an apartment in Sugar House, right down the street from Ali Goulet on Warnock right there.
Yeah,
like
you still have the same house.
Yeah, yeah, nice. So we rented this apartment, and that was for sure real life. And Kellie told me this later. She's like, that first year was like a test. I didn't know how you were going to be. I didn't know what life was going to be like with you. And so I was like, you know, things might have been different, but you were okay and you were good. And so there was this definitely a 1 full year where it was just crazy. But
just new. Everything was new.
Yeah,
Justin?
yeah. It was definitely just us. You know, we had a lot of help and we had a lot of visitors still and friends. But it was kind of like being pushed out into the world for the first time again. I'm like, figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
And let's talk about Kellie, dude.
Kellie's a ride or die, huh?
Ride or die right
dude.
there.
Yeah.
Man. She was your childhood, or your, not childhood, but.
No, I mean, we were kids, man.
Yeah, kids. Like,
high school
you guys
sweetheart.
got together young.
Yeah, so when we met, I was 17, she was 15. We met.
We were kids.
Yeah, we were. We went to different schools and whatnot, but we had the same birthday month. So she turned 16 and I turned 18, and that's when it got sketchy because shit was suddenly illegal, but I didn't realize. No, we were good though. So yeah, man, since 94, we were friends for a year. We started dating and we dated for like 8 years. And yeah, she stuck with me before, she stuck with me after, and she's still there.
And there's something to be said, you know, sticking through the worst times.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
for sure.
so dope, dude. She was there for you. And
Shouts to Kellie.
Birdman.
Yep.
Give her a Birdman.
I hit her a Birdman. I've been doing too many air horns. I had to hit the Birdman.
Yeah, but she's still dope, man. Anybody who knows Kellie,
yeah, she's the best.
She lives life full speed. She's open and she's just fucking funny, dude. She's happy all the time, and she's consistent in her character. And yeah, I couldn't have had a better person on my side at that point.
Yeah, because going through that solo would have been tough, I imagine.
It would probably be a completely different situation.
Yeah,
and had she bounced, different situation, man. I could have gone into a state that I
maybe not come back from, right?
Never recovered from. And I've met some people who it changed them for the worst, and they did not come out the other side in a good state. So
yeah.
Cool. Well, transitioning, we're gonna do a little fan favorite.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot.
We almost forgot. Name that video part.
Oh, okay.
Okay, here we go.
Pressure is on.
All right, how you feeling, Tim? You feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Feeling good?
Yep.
Feeling ready? All right, I'm gonna hit you with one. It's short, so focus up.
We're good.
You know it?
Yeah, it's the intro to Subject Hawkinson.
Woo!
Wow. Yeah, I think at that point it's panning across his medals and his money, and then he drops into the pipe.
Dude.
That is exact. That is the exact frame.
That's
Literally
insane,
the exact
dude.
frame. Well, let me tell you what, Tim. We got you a prize pack. We got air fresheners. We got some stickers
All right.
for that sick whip you got parked in
Yeah,
front.
you do have a pretty
For the
sick
air
whip out
freshener.
there.
I don't know. It might bring the value down. And we got a bomb hole T-shirt over here. Boom.
All right.
Get that merch,
Score.
son.
Thanks,
Yeah, we
fellas.
got some merch. We got some
right.
merch. All right, and now this is for the fans. You know, if you know this one, comment on the Instagram.
Yeah, you don't answer this one.
You don't answer this one, but it's a little different genre.
Is that from an F? I can't. I don't want to.
I'm just gonna say you know that one, bud,
Yeah, I know that one.
and that's one of my favorites of
I didn't.
all
I
time.
wouldn't have got the first one, and I've seen that movie a million times.
You wouldn't have?
I'm just not that good at this game.
Yeah,
I'm
Buds.
gonna
Good
be
thing
honest.
good thing Buds isn't playing. I wouldn't bet on
If
him,
I was
man.
playing,
I'll be honest.
I got-
That's the only thing I was nervous about coming on. Was like, dude, when they do that part on me, I'm gonna be dead. But
Nailed it. All right, I'm gonna take us away here. Man, shouts to name that video part. Love
Yeah, you
the,
did a good
the
job,
game
dude.
show music.
thanks.
So yeah, transitioning into life with without being able to walk, man, just seems insane.
Yeah.
life with the chair.
Life with the chair. It seems like you got some new activities. You got into what's it called?
Wheelchair rugby.
Wheel-
When I joined up, it was called Murder Ball.
Yeah, murder ball.
Yep. The people that were behind the sport at the time were trying to get funding and support across the planet for it, and so they realized Murder Ball wasn't necessarily the best name.
Name to attract people.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of took
Sounds
on.
pretty intimidating.
Yeah, and it is. I mean,
You wanna
you've
complain?
played.
Yeah, you know, Tim got us out there. I don't remember who was all with us, like Bobby
Meeks, I think.
Travis
maybe
Wood.
Travis Wood.
I can't remember
Yeah.
if Blue was there or not.
I think
I don't
he
know. I
was.
came
Bobby,
several
yeah.
times, I remember, but
Yeah.
dude, it is so much fun.
Yeah.
How was
So-
how was Buds out there on the court? Was he pretty good?
He was
or-
solid.
That was
Yeah.
solid. We
Yeah.
used to all play basketball together.
Oh,
yeah,
you
that
balled
was a
out?
fun fact. Yeah,
we had the snowboarder league.
yeah, we had a league.
That we would meet up on the regular. Was that
Like weekly.
Eisenhower Elementary
yeah,
School
like
or something?
Eisenhower.
And yeah, in the summer months, man, when everyone was kind of just downtime, these
We'd play like every week.
yeah, and it
like
got heated,
hardcore.
man. It was
It
fun.
got heated.
Outdoor gravel, like no one was really great. There was a couple
Yeah.
that stood out, you know.
Some were better than others. So
Yeah.
it was really sick to get back on the court with Tim, and that's kind
Yeah.
of for us what it was about.
Yeah.
And man, I got to say, it's like more fun than basketball. It's insane.
Really?
Yeah, he taught us. I mean, he can tell us about it, but you're in a wheelchair and
You do pick and rolls and all that?
Oh yeah,
Dude, you
yeah,
go nuts.
there's a lot of things that transition from basketball. You play on a basketball court, and so that pick and roll move is like that thing is it's
Crucial.
a real thing.
You
Yeah.
can't get around as quickly on a wheelchair. Like it's even probably more of a thing.
Dude, some of these dudes are fast.
So
Really?
it's definitely not like on your feet, right?
Yeah.
But these wheelchairs are designed a little different than this one, and they're very quick and very agile. And so depending on the person that's sitting in it, there's some dudes that move where you're just like, whoa,
Yeah.
what just happened? And you're done. So
and they hit you.
and yeah, it's full contact.
Really?
They got like bumpers, metal
yeah.
bumpers. Or
Yeah, the
something.
way the chairs are designed.
You get knocked out of your chair if you're not careful.
Yeah. So we strap in multiple places to keep. It's kind of like a binding. If you're loose, you don't have that same responsiveness.
Yeah.
And the chairs are the same way. So I use snowboard straps on my feet, snowboard straps across my waist, and then I strap my knees to these sidebars. And yeah, man, you can just you turn your upper body and the chair turns. It's that agile. And so
Sick.
yeah, it's pretty sick. But
Cool.
pretty
The fast
fast-paced.
guys do when they hit you full speed, like you feel it through your core.
They're
just like-
moving.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, Jarzy for sure.
It's like a Zdeno Chara full speed hockey check, but in a wheelchair.
In
huh?
a chair, and it's all loud because, and they give you gloves or else because it gives you some better
Yep.
grip. And dude, it's fun as
Yeah,
shit.
Sick.
yeah, it's a good time.
Sick.
I'll link some videos.
Yeah.
because there's like a murder ball documentary. I think
Yeah.
from when they still call it murder ball.
Totally. And for all the listeners, viewers, we always have like a list of links in the video and in the podcast if you're listening for stuff we're talking about. But moving forward, what was the kind of transition into life after boarding as far as a career?
I was lost.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, did you
I
have
had-
did you have a dark period at all, or?
Nah, not really. I had a friend who he'd store a bunch of weed at my house, and so I had access to really high grade cannabis, and and so I was in a really good place mentally. I would work out very, very hard, 5 days a week, and then later it turned out to 8 times a week, and I would come home, eat good food to recover. I'd smoke some weed and just relax, and But I didn't know where I was going. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do for, everything was a physical aspect. And so suddenly I had to use my mind, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do or what I could do. And so I took 5 years from 2000 to 2005 where I didn't work. I had saved up money. Quicksilver, I still had my contract at my house unsigned, broke my neck. And Chris Owen called me up. He said, hey, you need to send that contract in. And they honored a contract for a full year for me, knowing that I would never ride. And so I had socked away a little bit of money. I was able to kind of float that shit for a bit. And I just worked out. And then one day I was at a party, and a guy at the party said, hey, man, you used to snowboard, right? And I said, yeah. He said, I work at backcountry.com, and we need guys on the phones to talk about snowboards. We don't know any. And I was like, yeah, I'll come do that shit. And I'd been working at Discover Card for 3 months on their phones because I didn't know anything else. And I was like, this fucking sucks. and I was like, I'll talk about snowboards on the phone over, like, charging
Collecting
people money for
yeah.
shit. Yeah. And so I bounced, like I turned in some like resignation paper that I was like, why do I have to do this? I turned that shit in, and then the next week I started at backcountry.com, and I was there for like 10 years. Learned a lot of e-commerce stuff and a bunch of other shit. And that was it, man. Like, yeah, but I didn't know what I was going to do. That was what freaked me out the most. I was like, what am I going to do for work?
Yeah.
So
You became the hard goods buyer eventually too, right? That's pretty
yeah,
sick.
Yeah, so I did a year
job
doing
evolved
customer
for you.
service, and then I did some merchandising, and then when whiskeymilitia.com came around, I came on as a buyer, and I worked with a couple of guys, Chris Brown, Mark Anderson, this guy Sam Bruni, and they were all like super smart, super fun, and they just, yeah, man, we had a great time just buying a ton of shit from friends companies, people I knew. So I got to go to trade shows and see everybody again, and that was like a really, really good transition back into the world, just of my friends and snowboarding, but in a different way. So
would you say you were kind of open, like welcomed with open arms when you came back to the snowboard world?
Hell yeah. Every trade show I went to, man, it was just like hugs and high fives, and like,
so sick.
Dude, there was this funny scene. Like, I knew Todd Richards a little bit, and we rolled up to the Omatic booth, and the dude jumped over a couch and like practically stumbled and came up and gave me a hug, and I had never received a warm welcome like that from that dude before. And I was just like, hell yeah. And
That's
the guys
sick.
that I was working with from backcountry were like, oh shit, man, you know Todd? And I was like, yeah, kind of, man. Like, I'd go to contests and he'd kick the shit out of everybody. And yeah, that's how I know him. So.
Man, shouts to
Anyway.
Richard.
Yeah, shots to
Ledge. Oh man, that's so cool. Around that time, was backcountry.com still out of a garage? Early days, right? Was it?
It was a bit past that.
It was past that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I came on a couple years after that, but that was like definitely the coolest time, I'm sure, for those guys because they were growing and stuff. But it was in Park City at the same spot that it's at currently, Kimball Junction. It was big, but it was not what it is now, and it still had like a grassrootsness to it. But yeah, it definitely transitioned to a point where I was like, I'm happy to leave.
What about backcountry Bob, dude? Let's talk about Bodie Merrill's dad.
Bob Merrill. Yeah, dude. So I worked with Bob at Backcountry, and he was just, to me, it was a trip. He was like this, like, I always thought he was this guy that was the Wizard of the Wasatch, who was a different guy that used to hitchhike in Big Cottonwood. And when I saw Bob Merrill for the first time, I'm like, oh, that's the Wizard of the Wasatch guy. But I had my shit misconstrued. But yeah, he worked at Backcountry. He was a little bit older. He was always super, if you know him, you know, he's super loud, and he's always just like in your face and just honest and open. And yeah, it was cool, man. He always had a bottle of whiskey stashed in his desk. He'd go over and he'd maybe be asleep on his keyboard. Like he'd fall on, like taking a little nap, and there'd be like 100 Z's on the screen, like, because he was, had a spreadsheet open or something. But knowledgeable, cool. He always talked about Bodie, like, and where he was at with his sponsors and pursuing stuff. And, you know, I didn't get it at the time what Bodie was putting down. And then when I started seeing his video parts, I was like, holy fuck. And I actually still feel like that dude is one of the best snowboarders who's ever lived. The stuff that he does in the street, the stuff that he can do in Big Mountain, I'm like, dude, this guy,
It's out of control.
I think he's overlooked in a way. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he does get the
For sure, by some.
yeah, for sure by some. But I look at the stuff he's done at every kind of discipline of snowboarding, and I'm like, he's one of the best that's ever lived, man. He's insane.
2-time Rider of the Year, though. He's got a little bit of shine.
He does
for
that,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
But
definitely
he's
gotten
overlooked.
kudos.
Some people don't realize that he's like fucking Travis Rice, if Travis Rice could also frontboard a Triple King.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like-
Exactly. That's the way I've always compared it to. I'm always like, he does what Travis Rice does in the backcountry, but then he goes to the street and does what Jeremy and JP do, but then he's doing it at like a size of Travis Rice.
Yeah.
And I mean,
it's
he's
crazy.
It's bonkers.
Bodie always says his dad's way cooler than him too, which is funny.
He's definitely he's like that cool 70s Playboy guy or whatever. Like there's something, but like with a hippie tone. I don't know.
Yeah,
man.
a little
like,
slight hippie tone.
You catch Backcountry Bob out on that boat. He's got a little. I mean, I'm not trying to throw him under the buzz, but I don't know what he's got in that cup, but he's feeling good.
He's feeling good.
And wake surfing, yeah.
Cup of the good times.
Yeah.
If Backcountry Bob's your dad, you're gonna be all right.
Yeah.
What's
you
the
don't have a
Wasatch
choice.
Wizard do? What's his story?
There was this dude that like you'd be driving up to Brighton, and right before Donut Falls, where I think it's Butler Fork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the stop right there that people hike?
Yep.
There's that stretch between Butler Fork and Donut Falls, and I'd always see this dude standing there hitching, and he had scruffy, long, blondish hair and a big-ass beard, and he'd be all bundled up, and it'd be 7:30 in the morning, 8 in the morning, and I don't know where the guy came from. And once in a while, we'd pick him up. Sometimes we'd just pass him by, depending on our vibe, but I always thought that was him, Wizard of the Wasatch guy, and I don't know who that guy is still to this day.
I wonder what the wizard does.
If we got any info on the Wizard of the Wasatch,
Yeah, please send us info on the
Yeah,
wizard.
yeah,
Does he do real magic?
he
I don't know.
may. He may. We
You
don't
never
know. Yeah.
Damn.
So you're obviously super into driving, right? And you got a BMW. Thing's fucking dope. So explain how the hell you drive a car when your legs don't work.
So there are custom hand controls that you purchase at a fair price, and you have them installed, and it allows you to run your gas and your brake. So they are on the left side of the steering column, driver's left. The brake always has to be manually attached because obviously you have to press that pedal, but the gas is a computer that speaks to the car's computer to tell you to accelerate. And so it's called a feather light, super easy to pull. It's just on this little hinge, and that's go. And then if you push forward on it, it presses the brake. And it's a little different, but it's really easy to get used to, and it makes life for someone like me super easy.
Yeah. And it's funny because we drive around and I'm like, fuck, I got to drive to Colorado. That sucks ass. And you're like, I'm going driving, right?
Yeah.
It's a different deal.
Yeah,
right?
totally. Like I'll make up opportunities to just
Yeah, now that you
go
got this
drive.
fast car too.
Yeah, totally.
You're like, I'm gonna go fast.
Totally. And so when this COVID shit hit, I hate to talk about it, but when this COVID shit hit and they closed the mountains, the resorts, I knew that the roads would be empty, similar to what they were like in like 92 and 93 when
Nice.
me and Mike Clunker and some other people used to race up and down the canyon. We would pass on blind corners, like doing just sketchy shit because there wasn't the traffic that there is now.
Yeah.
I knew that was go time again, and so I'd wake up early on a Saturday or a Sunday, and sometimes Kelly would come, sometimes it'd just be me, but I would go rip that uphill leg from here to Brighton,
And
cutting
just
corners
rip it.
and like doing it like the old school, and I can still remember every turn of that too.
Yeah.
And just thinking about Ollie Goulet put down a time from his house one time. Him and Kyle Schneiberg ripped it from his house on Warnock to Brighton in like a ridiculous amount of time, and I was like, dude, we should do like a rally drive up this thing. But that's my mindset when I jump in the car and go to the canyon.
That's
I'm like,
sick.
yeah. So there's little sections that I'll rip it, and then down I just take it easy and just let the car slow itself down. But like that uphill version, man, I push it for sure.
Fuck yeah.
Cheddar biscuits. How much does it cost to install that into your car?
Fuck Chetty.
Cheddar biscuits on the menu with the cheddar biscuits. The purchase price for a single unit was $1,200. The installation typically comes with that. There was only one dealer of this particular product in town at the time that had any experience installing it, and I had 2 vehicles. I still have 2 vehicles, so I called him up and I said, hey, how much would you do 2 of these for? And I got like a few $100 off in that little negotiation, but it's typically about a $1,200 product.
Is that the only option?
No,
there's other
there's
ways
some
to
more
go, too.
manual versions that
Yeah.
you can get for a few hundred. The first ones I had installed, I spent total of $900.
Yeah.
And it's all out of pocket. There's no coverage from
There's no
insurance or
insurance
anything.
for
That's
that?
fucking
You drive it?
bullshit.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, that's what I felt.
I'm gonna hit
That's
the
fucking
insurance
bullshit.
company with a quick.
You're fired.
They got to get their
For
shit
real.
together.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Send the check.
That's just messed up though, because you need to be able to drive. I mean,
Yeah.
How else are you gonna get to your work? What are you gonna do?
Yeah, for sure. And that was another process actually that was like, you know, it's a bureaucratic process, but when you're in the hospital, they say, hey, start filling out this paperwork because in 6 months you're going to need to drive. And so I filled out all this paperwork to get a lift, and they tell you need a van. And I was like, I'm not fucking driving a minivan, dude. So I found a 1978 Ford van with a quadra something conversion at the factory as a 4-wheel drive. It was badass. It was lifted up. And by the time I got the approval for the lift to be paid for by the state, I was already driving a Subaru, and we sold the Ford van.
Oh wow. But they tell you you're going to have a lift.
They pretty much, yeah, oh yeah.
And you're just like, nah, I got this.
Yeah, I'm not driving a minivan, dude. I don't give a shit what anybody says. I'd rather not drive.
I gotta piss like a fucking racehorse, to be honest with you.
Like a racehorse.
Do it. Papa's mustache in the third.
Should I just go right now?
Why do they say piss like a racehorse? Do racehorses piss more than a normal horse?
I don't know, man. Like maybe there's a rule in wheelchair rugby where you can't like hold your piss because your blood pressure spikes. And so it gives you more blood flow and you're a better athlete. And so
really?
Yeah. And so referees are actually on the lookout for guys that are like pushing on their bladder because they have to piss because it spikes your shit. And I wonder if racehorses, if they don't let them piss or they like pinch it off or something,
it'll make them
just a hunch.
go faster.
Wow.
Possibly.
I thought they tied their ball sack up. Or is that a horse?
Those are bulls.
Or bull.
Dude,
that's a bull.
Yeah,
that's a bull. Okay.
Bulls.
Okay.
That's how they get them jumping.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
What the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Okay.
That's probably what it is, dude.
I don't know.
That makes sense.
It also just could be because they're fast as shit. Like
You're a knowledgeable dude.
I make shit up on the fly.
I do too, actually.
Yeah, that was just from some freestyle garbage, but who
It
knows? Maybe there's
sounds
something
right,
to
though.
it. Dude, it's all in how you present it, man. You say it with like a little bit of enthusiasm and maybe like some authority, and people will believe that shit.
They believe it.
I don't know that either, but maybe they do.
I think it works.
And at some point, we were talking earlier, and we were talking about shitting our pants before we started recording. What you said you had some instances of.
All right, yeah. So here we go. Yeah. So when you break your neck the way I did, you lose a lot of functions, right? So that's my safety net that catches me. It wasn't just Tim; it was Tim with injury. So my older brother and his wife had taken me and Kellie out to Wendover to do some gambling. I'd never really gambled in public, and we're at a craps table, and I was on a heater, which I joked with Ethan was maybe I was up $200, which isn't shit, but I felt good, and suddenly I had to go to the bathroom, and I wasn't about to step away from the table, but I also didn't realize I could bounce and they would just cover your chips.
Oh yeah,
so I stuck it out, completely shit my pants, and when I kind of realized like, yo, I got to handle this shit. I think somebody hit 7 and they cleared everything. I'm like, I gotta go. Kellie followed me into the men's room and we just handled the cleanup right there on site, dude. Just uncomfortable situations, but there was a lot of those, and we dealt with it. And it came out the other side better, I guess, and definitely cleaner. But I
imagine you just have to get used to those uncomfortable situations.
Yeah. It was part of the deal up front. At this point, all that shit's under control. But it took me years to be able to like figure out my body again and what was going on, which was weird. Yeah, and definitely uncomfortable at times, and definitely embarrassing. Many times.
It seems like when we were talking before the cameras were rolling, you were kind of talking about how like when you've gone through all this crazy shit, like lose control of your body, you kind of just become really comfortable with yourself because you've been so vulnerable and you've been through it all. You don't give a shit anymore, right?
Yeah, for sure. Another situation when I was in the hospital, because I was so open and comfortable with situations, the nurses came in one time. They said, "Hey, we've got a group of students who need to practice cathing to pass off their grades or whatever. Like, would you be willing to be that test subject?" And I was like, yeah, sure. And so they laced that up, and groups of like 6 to 9 people, male and female, would all come in, and they'd all grab my honker and stick this tube down at practice. Yeah, man. And I couldn't feel anything at that point. And so every single time they'd stick that tube in, man, I'd pop a boner, and you'd see like some of the girls would kind of get uncomfortable, but they all had to take a turn. And the guys were all like, but they knew they had to do it. And so like,
you're just sitting there like,
hey. Rock hard.
And so I was this test subject for cathing. Yeah, man. But it was just like, I didn't care, like I'd lost so much shit. I really didn't care. I was like, whatever, let's just do this. Yeah, I'll help them out.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was pretty
and you
weird.
were just fully comfortable.
Sir, you have a rock hard erection. Like, yeah.
Dude, it sounds like you just took this like a champ, man. Like, I just don't know if I was faced with all this, how I would get through it, man. You're fucking amazing.
Oh, thanks, man. I didn't know how I'd take it either. It was just kind of
you don't know.
Presented itself. And looking back, there's a lot of hilarious shit where I'm just like, I wonder if other people would have done that, but you never know until you're in
I
a
bet
situation,
a lot of people would have been like, no way, man. I don't want all these chicks coming in touching my honker.
Yeah, I didn't care. I was just like, whatever. So
that seems like the people that seem to be able to handle those really heavy situations usually have a good sense of humor and are able to like the only way to get through it is be able to fucking laugh it off to a degree, right?
Yep. Yeah. That definitely like got through a lot of situations with just laughing because it was ridiculous. You look at it and you're like, this is a ridiculous scenario.
You were telling me a story about the chick with the perfume.
Yeah.
I don't think Chris heard this one.
Yeah, no, he didn't. He'd gone aside. So at nighttime, about 8 p.m. or whatever, the regular nurses, they would bounce, and there was a night shift. And there was this lady that, she was older, probably in her 50s or something, but my sense of smell went through the roof because I'd lost everything else. And she wore this perfume that just, it tore me up every time I smelled it, man. It would just make me sick, and I couldn't sleep. And so I kind of didn't like her because of that, right? And then she got in a battle with my mom about religion one time in my room, and I just had to ask them to leave. So I kind of had this thing. Anyway, she's in one night, and they would stick their finger in your butt to like swirl to get shit to come out, right? Like it's a really weird situation. And so I'd be laying there, and this lady, she comes on, and she's rifling around in there for a minute, and it was starting to feel like it was a little bit longer than the other nurses had done. And because I didn't like her, and I was like, did you lose your ring or something? And she just immediately like pulls her finger out and was like taken back. And I think that was the last time that she actually did that. But yeah, man, I asked her if she lost her ring in there, and she didn't like that. But man, she had it coming.
Dude, the fact that you have the sense of humor to be able to do this, they must have just loved you in there, dude.
Yeah. Most of them did. I think that lady probably did not like me much, man. Yeah, because I never saw her again. She probably was like, I don't want to see that.
She's like, enough of that.
Yeah.
I never did find my ring either. That shit's crazy.
Yeah, so I made the best of it. If I had the situation or the opportunity, I would definitely crack a joke or whatever.
Yeah, keep it light for everybody.
Yeah.
You're a badass. I saw also at one point Signal made you a little setup so you can go up the hood, huh?
Yep.
You could get on snow again. What was that like?
It was actually scary, but it was really cool after the fact. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if Dave knew this. So we had gone out to the Signal factory to work out some deals for Whiskey Militia. And, you know, I knew Dave. I was on LibTech about the same time he was for a minute. And so, yeah, it was cool. We were out there. I'd seen every third Thursdays. And then he asked me when we were there, he's like, hey, would you be interested in doing one of these? We've had this idea. And I was like, absolutely. And that was like August. And I'm thinking it would be, February before anything happened. He hits me up like a week later. He's like, hey, here's the dates. We're doing this at Mount Hood. Can you make it? And I was like, all right. So yeah, we flew up. I flew up, and the entire time all I could think of was like, I'm going to die doing this thing, man. Like he'd kind of told me about it. I thought about what the conditions were going to be like at Hood at the time.
Hood's steep too.
Yeah, and we just did it down in one of those little canyons after all the snow had melted away. And so I knew that it was rocks on both sides.
Yeah.
We get there, and it's rocks on both sides, and then they have like 6 cats parked right where we were doing the whole deal. And so it was all, everywhere around me was just the potential to just crush your face.
And you didn't really know
and
how
I
to
had
control
no
it
idea
yet.
how this thing was going to respond. They brought it up, and I was looking at it, and I was sitting directly on snowboards, like my ass bones, there's no meat there anymore. So I'm like, this is going to hurt. Like everything was weird about it. But it was kind of weird. It was when he first clicked in the foot straps, and I heard that sound again. I was like, oh, this is going to be all right. This is going to be cool.
Just hearing the click.
That's
crazy. And so I felt comfortable at that point, and then they actually took turns in it before me to see how it would respond and how it would react. And I saw them carve it, and I was like, all right, let's do this. And then, we got the shots that we needed for it. But
that's sick. They tried it out too.
Yeah, they all took a turn, and they're the ones who broke it. And I don't know if you guys watched the
watched
video,
it,
but if you've ever seen the video, there's definitely some breaks that happen with the materials being used and the quality of the welding. It just shit snapped. And so Bert and Jason Brown had showed up, and he was feeling frisky, so he went down to the shop and he made a few fixes, and we got back on the hill and got the clips that we needed. But it was a really cool experience, and it was fun to kind of connect with those guys.
Yeah,
definitely fun to reconnect with some old faces too. Andy and Bobby had shown up, and
sick.
And
Andy Wright, Bobby Meeks.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. But leading up to it, man, I was scared shitless. I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
And how was that feeling when you were back on snow, kind of carving on that board? It looked pretty awesome, right?
It was cool. Yeah.
Such a feeling.
I've
the
done
noises, I bet too.
The noises, the sound of the slush, like all that shit just sounded cool to me. And I was like, this is great. And just being at Hood also, I mean, that place is magic for anyone who's been there. They know. Yeah. But it was different than the mono skiing that I'd done at the time because my feet were actually on the board and I could feel my knees moving as we went over stuff. My legs were strapped in and I had angle on the bindings, like old school, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, this is great."
That's rad.
Cool, man.
Yeah, it was cool.
It seems like there could be some like PTSD there for some people. Like talking to Tonino and Liz, it kind of seemed like when they saw you take that bail, they kind of like it changed their whole perspective on life. He said, Tino, in his words, said that he kind of turn the volume down. And it seemed like Liz kind of went away from sponsored snowboarding after that and stuff. Like it definitely like just seeing like that degree, it makes you realize what's important, you know, like oh shit, maybe going huge is not worth it at times, right?
Yeah, that could be. I didn't know that, but that is trippy. Yeah, if I look at the timeline, like, yeah, Tonino kind of phased into like team management and development and stuff with Nitro, and I mean, Liz is smart brain. She needed math anyway, so she was starting to. Yeah, that's crazy. Holy shit.
Yeah,
Sorry,
she's
guys.
crazy smart. I bet they thank you for it.
No, they're
at this
stoked.
point.
Are you kidding me? They're like, I don't think they'd change a thing about their life.
Yeah,
Awesome.
They shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful life they live, so yeah.
Yeah,
they have a little.
Well,
kid.
no, you need that for perspective. Like you they should be thanking you to a degree. Like it's like, I don't know, it's cool.
Your story too, man. Anyone else who has to go through this, listening to you talk about it, they need to watch this, I imagine, because it's got to be the hardest thing to ever go through. And you seem like you just did this, just faced it.
Feels like I aced it for sure, man. Like I've said to multiple people in the past few years, like I'm really good at being in a wheelchair. I have no idea why, but I'm damn good at this.
You're just damn good at it. You were too tall anyways, man.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
6'2" or whatever.
Yeah, like, my time would have been up anyway, dude. And that's
tough
another
on guys
thing.
like me playing basketball. I'd rather play wheelchair rugby with you. Because,
kind of level playing field.
Yeah,
But
no, you're
that's
still way faster than us, though.
That's been another benefit, is like I didn't have to deal with the like, you know, getting cut and dealing with that psychological warfare that I'm sure most riders have to deal with when they phase out. You see it in all sports too now. Like you see it all over the place when people's careers are over. You know, Mike Tyson, he doesn't know what to do. He's talked about it openly. He's like, I feel like I'm like, you know, I used to be this warrior and now I'm not. And I didn't have a choice, man. I got retired early on purpose from some ultimate force out there that's like, it's time to slow down, man.
That's actually so true, huh? A lot of that, they just don't know what to do.
Yeah, so I feel like although it was awkward, it was definitely like a graceful exit from snowboarding where I didn't have to be like, fuck, man, I'm washed up. Yeah,
and how do you, at what age do you actually scale back?
Yeah.
And you keep going and
totally.
Yeah, you just don't even know how to handle it.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, kind of a random question, but there's got to be like, you know, just there's probably things that you don't realize going through life that we take for granted. Like, what are some random things about being in a wheelchair that people don't realize, you know, day to day? Like, there's so much shit, right?
Yeah.
But like things people don't think of.
Yeah. It's stupid stuff for me. It's pulling a zipper up, you know, like my fingers still don't work. My thumb doesn't work. It doesn't come into play. It's all that tiny little stuff that I never even gave thought to, you know. Tying a shoe, I still can't tie my shoes. Well, I can. I just don't bother because it takes like 5 minutes per shoe. And so I'm like, fuck that. You're not getting tied.
Yeah, moving on.
Yeah, and it takes me like anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes to put my pants on, depending on the mood of my legs. They'll start kicking on their own, and they have these spasms, and it's little stuff like that. You know, there's other things at times I've noticed a lot of people who are physically able who don't do shit, even just walking around. I'm just like, dude, just get up and do something, you know? Like, I want people to, like, do more. And so I have this weird, like, level of expectation of other people who aren't in wheelchairs to, like, do something physical, like, get out and get healthy, you know? I would be doing it in a second, but it is that perspective of, like, I can't do it. I wish I could. And if I could, I'd be, like, I'd try to do superhero shit. I'd be trying stupid shit. If I could, I'd just like, fuck it.
The lesson for somebody like me listening is like, we got to do it for the motherfuckers that can't, like you.
Yeah.
Too. Like, it's like our duty. You know what I mean? Like, fuck that. Get off your couch. Go fucking do something.
At some point, right after I got hurt, I was talking to you. I can't remember if it was Shane Charlevoix or like Mikey LeBlanc or something, but I started realizing like I'd never been at the top of Mount Olympus. Like all these peaks that were around here that were right here my whole life. I was like, I never did shit. Like I regretted stuff like that. And I remember somebody put up a photo from up there at one point, and I was just like, hell yeah. And I reached out to him. I was like, dude, I've always wanted to see this view. Thank you.
So sick.
You know? So yeah, it's stuff like that. Like I could have done so much more than I did, but I didn't.
You don't realize it till it's
until it's gone. Yeah.
And that's even the same as you get too old, you know, like I should probably go hit up Mount Olympus.
Yeah. Maybe.
I climbed Timpanogos once. That's kind of dope.
More than I ever did.
Yeah.
So there
but
you go.
know, I might get older and I won't be able to climb Olympus.
Sure.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I need to go do that.
Inspiring to not leave anything on the table. It's like, just go, you know, seize the day, go get it done,
Live
go do
while
it for
you
the
can.
people that can't.
Yep.
I love it, man.
Yep.
I'm like fired up sitting here. I'm like, fucking let's go.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's cool.
That's cool, man. That's good to hear.
You got anything you want to say to other people freshly in a wheelchair? Any advice? What they need to, I don't know,
Man.
words of wisdom?
not really words of wisdom, but if you need to talk to somebody and find some shit out and you want some sneaky little details on how to do something different, I'm totally available.
Life hacks.
Life hacks, yeah. I've thought from time to time about doing like a little series of stuff.
Dude, that would be dope.
And put up online, like how to do a transfer to a car and little things like that that could help people along the way. And I've had the opportunity to actually go to the hospital and talk to some people from time to time. Yep.
That's sick.
But at Mr. Toilets on Instagram, DM me.
Yeah, we'll link you up.
I'll share some shit with you. But yeah, you just, I mean, it's going to vary from person to person. You know, it's all situational.
Because everyone has different amounts they can move and stuff.
And
right?
mindsets are different.
Yeah.
I apparently had a bulletproof mindset because I just flowed right into it. Not everybody's like that. I don't know. And you never know till you're in it, but
you didn't have a period of time at all where you were just like locked yourself in your house and just were depressed? You just,
That's so sick.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah.
Dude.
I woke up one day, there was a psychologist sitting in my hospital room next to me. I was looking at this guy, he was looking at me, he had a clipboard, and I was like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "My name's Steve. I'm the psychologist that they sent in to talk to you." I was like, "Why?" And I didn't understand it. And so we'd have normal conversations each day.
And he's just
a week
like,
later, he
great.
stopped showing up. And I hit the ground running, man.
Timmy's fine.
He's
Timmy
like,
doesn't need
Timmy's
me.
fucking good.
Well,
I was definitely bummed, but I definitely
Handled it.
yeah.
Well, you know,
I had the capacity to figure it out on my own.
so sick. It's so sick.
badass.
And you know, at the end of the day, like everybody goes through shit in life. It's actually pretty much impossible. It all varies on the level of shit. Your shit happened to be fucking absolutely brutal. But the lesson I'm learning from hearing you talk is like when shit hits the fan, like have a sense of humor. You know what I mean? Like that seems like it helped you.
A sense of humor helps a ton, and a damn fine network of people helps a fuck ton.
And I
And
guess
that's
we're
what I
lucky
put
with
most
the
of it
shred
to.
community, huh?
Very much so. Yeah.
And a ride or die woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crucial.
Hell dog. You know
No,
it.
I also heard a funny story that when you're in cars driving around, Trent told me this, who used to work with at Backcountry.
Yeah.
You still like look at jibs and look at lines. Is that something
Still
that's
to
just
this
stuck
day.
with you for life?
It was there before I snowboarded. Like on trips with my dad and stuff, we'd just cruise around in his camper and go camping in the western states. I used to look out the side of the road, like we'd be going across salt flats, and I would always pretend that there was a remote control car going the same speed, and it would be cruising, and it would be hitting those, like where a road would go out, it would hit the gap over the top. If it came to water on the salt flats, it could immediately turn into a boat. And if there was nothing to ride on or boat on, it would turn into a jet. And I would jump shit and carve through shit. Fast forward, post-snowboard injury, I will be cruising down a road, and if I'm the passenger, I'm looking at people's houses. I'm looking at the bushes in their yard, drops and gaps, rocks. I'm like, and I'm snowboarding next to it, and I'm still jibbing in my mind, and I'm still jumping over houses and shit. So, yeah.
So sick.
Yeah,
That's
man.
so awesome.
It's good to know there's always mind jibbing is still available at all times.
Yeah, and there's been times I'll be listening to good music or something, and I can close my eyes, and I can go through any of the runs at Brighton in my mind.
Really?
I have that place still memorized to the T. I try and tell my nephews where there's shit on the hill that I think they can handle on their feet. Yeah, man, it's all still in there, and it'll be there forever.
That's
so.
crazy because I sometimes try to bring people to old spots and I can't do it. And I might have been there last year.
Oh shit, yeah,
Man,
so
the mind boarding's inspirational. No, that's always there. That's such a good escape.
Yeah,
you know?
it's cool. From time to time, it's a fun little exercise to fuck around
Stay
with. So.
stoked with.
Yeah, for sure.
That's fucking awesome.
So one thing I like to try to remember to ask the guests, but don't always do, is like, who would you say is your biggest inspiration going through this journey of life for you?
Man, that's kind of an easy one, but it's definitely been Kellie for the whole journey. You know, there's different parts of my life in snowboarding, prior to snowboarding, et cetera, that it's other people, but overall, she's the one for sure that has kept me up when I was down. I can look at her and how she lives her life, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's how it's done, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got a handful of really close friends still that I can look to any of them at any point, and I'm just like, those people are hilarious, man, and they live wide open, and it's tight. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely Kellie.
Yeah.
Beyond that, my dad.
Awesome.
Yeah, he was
That's
the
awesome.
shit, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so cool to hear, man.
I remember with Kellie at your wedding when you guys did your dance in the wheelchair. I was like, dude, these guys are dope.
Yeah.
That
We
was
got
the
photos
shit.
of that. That
Yeah,
are hilarious.
I think
man.
I have a photo that's still at my house.
Yeah, rad, man. Yeah, I was tucked up under a dress and came out with some shit in my teeth, like a little like garter belt or whatever.
But that's just when I knew that she was a ride or die, and just that having that in your life, man. That's
Yeah.
the shit.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope
Thank
everyone
you.
can find that in a relationship and a marriage, because that's what's needed.
Yeah.
So
sure.
dope,
Thank
dude.
you.
What about back when you were snowboarding? Who are you looking up to shred wise?
Locally, there was a ton of people, and it started with Brandon Ruff was always kind of like the cream of the crop, top of the tree at Christmas, however you want to describe it. We all looked at him and we were like, wow.
He still has lines no one's done it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, totally. And other groups, I mean, Andy Wright was still riding as a pro at that time. There's a ton of people, Adam Compton, Zach Watkins, Tonino, of course. I mean, the list goes on and on. I could name like 15 people. Many of them never went beyond like a small local sponsorship. Some of them never got sponsored, but there's a whole host of guys. Mike Clunker, the guy did crazy shit on the mountain. Never got the respect that he should have. He had a small sponsorship with Generics at one point, but the dude he ripped shit. He'd be doing cab sevens when someone else was doing a back three over something.
Damn.
He was just advanced. And this was on like a 163 Kemper with the shittiest bindings you've ever seen.
I'll tell you, Clunker would look good on the bottom of a board. I would have bought that.
Yeah, right?
He's
I was
like,
thinking that too.
God
It's kind of a
damn,
dope
somebody
name.
should have signed Clunker,
Oh,
man.
dude.
Clunker sounds dope.
Yeah, he should have gone further than he did because of his abilities, man. Because he was epic on a board, like so good. So, at the pro level beyond Brighton, man, it was Damien, and then as soon as I saw Terry Hawkinson in Scream of Consciousness, and he was like 15 or something, and that's who I locked onto right away.
Yeah.
I was like, that guy just is a powerhouse. There's something different about him. And I tried to, I started riding lower and doing all these things because of that guy, and he was always like it for me.
That's dope.
So, yeah.
Totally. This is kind of a heavy question, but I'm just going to fucking dive in. But like, if you could go back in time, would you change like that day doing that frontside air in the half pipe? Like, would you change anything about your riding? Like, wish you did something different, or like, what's your outlook if you could go back in time now?
Man, I have had that question probably a dozen times.
Really?
From cool people only, just so you know. And I've always said that no, I wouldn't change anything, because the people who I met and the things I saw from the people I already knew after that point, I wouldn't trade for anything, because I saw these displays of love and kindness and generosity that wouldn't be worth swapping out for like landing a trick again, And then there's a small piece of me that's like, yeah, I wouldn't go up that night. I would not go up that night, and I would just continue. But my life would be completely different. I wouldn't be the person who I am. So ultimately, no, I wouldn't change it. That's the first time I've ever said I would change it a little bit, but I wouldn't.
That's so sick.
Dude,
That's so
pretty
cool to
dope,
hear.
man.
Yeah.
It's like, I think a lot of people think that they're like, their value lies in their accolades or this or that. And for me, when I look at you, your currency is people and relationships.
Yeah.
And that's like more important than any of the other bullshit. And you're just...
Snowboarding was the catalyst, but it introduced me to everyone I know now, and the injury introduced me to everyone else I know now. And that you can't trade that shit for anything, man. That's the only thing that's going to matter at the end. It's not going to be that I jumped over a highway or sent that cliff. It'll be those relationships, that were maybe...
And you can only shred so long anyways at that level. So
yeah, totally.
In the longer run, it's like people and relationships are really what's important.
That's all that'll matter at the end. So
yeah, that's awesome to hear you say that, man. That's inspirational. And you are a true G, man.
Thanks, dude.
Straight up, dude.
Thank you.
Man,
Thank you very much.
It's been a fucking honor. I mean,
yeah.
Is there any other subjects or any things that you wanted to talk about that we haven't yet?
No, man, this has been rad.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's been unreal, man.
It's been super cool,
Yeah, you are. Your positivity is just amazing, and I think people will latch on to that.
Cool. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, if something I said helped anybody, this is well worth it. If
I ever have to go through anything on that level, I'd only hope I can have your positive outlook, and I'll try to make sure that sticks with me.
Cool, man.
You know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
You're the shit.
Thanks, brother.
We really appreciate having you coming on the podcast, saying your thing. It means a lot. I feel inspired. I want to go do some shit right now for the people that can't. And, man, thank you, everybody, for listening, watching. We'll follow Tim on Instagram, and we'll see you next week. Over and out from the bomb hole. See ya.
Later.
Late.